Lisa. Today I have the second winter page that I wanted to do. I did one the other day where I had a single photo that was taken at the same location, and I was really talking about the clothes that I was wearing and all was the story, but the picture of course had similar colors in it, and I went with a really bright scheme. Today I'm going to go with a little more exactly, I don't know if subtle is going to be the right word, but I'm really focusing on the landscape here, so I'm not looking for that contrasting orange and yellow colors. I want to pull the colors from the photo. And I have my sketch for this. We're going to have the 4 photos. I'm going to crop down a little bit here. These are 3 inches by 3s and 3 by 4s, I think, in this arrangement. And then I'll mat probably all of those. And then for my background, I'm looking at using my jelly plate to create some designs, some paper for the background. I've also got a tree design here. I have a stamp that I haven't used very much that I think would work really well there. So we'll see if that works or if I need a die cut or whatever for these. So the first thing we're going to do is work with the jelly plate. Now, if you don't have a jelly plate, you could do this, of course, with pattern paper. You could do some stamping or stenciling with, just doing regular stencils. The jelly plate's kind of like the reverse process with stencils. You put your paint down and you put your stencils on top as opposed to putting the stencil down on the paper and then the paint on it. Now, I have several different paints here, mostly craft paints, which is what I like to use with my jelly plate. I have a few things from Academy Acrylic. I buy those at Hobby Lobby, and I've got a distress paint in here as well. The 8x10 size jelly plate. And then my rollers. Actually, I'm going to have to go get my other roller. I've washed it and it's in the other room, so I have my little roller right now. I have a few other little tools to make designs with it, and then I have several stencils. This one from Michaels that now that it has quite a bit of paint on it, it's gotten some it's more sturdy than it was when I first bought it. This stencil I really liked for this design because I felt like it kind of went with the trees and the way they're, the limbs are sort of branching out. Also, oops. I also have a tree branch stencil, but just a small version of that. And then this round one, this was a design that I cut on the silhouette. So those are ones that I'm going to be using in several different layers. So let me go ahead and get my brayer, and we'll get started using the jelly plate. So I'm starting with some brown paints. I like to make my first layer usually something kind of neutral. It's just become my habit. And these will show through all of the blue stuff that I'll be adding later on. And I thought that brown was awfully dark, so I was kind of working with it off onto a separate little piece of paper. I keep the cellophane wrappings from things and use those as a place to lay my paint out and mix colors. And then I can just throw them away instead of throwing them away when I first get them. Now that first page, didn't get a lot of the beige background, but the ghost print is going to be one that I think we can work with. And we need to do a couple of these so I can have a couple of beige backgrounds, because I'm going to need at least 2 sheets to do the design. Now this particular video is one of those where if you like seeing what doesn't work as well as what does work, there's fairly long videos, you can tell when you start playing it, and that's the reason, is that you're going to see some jelly prints here that work really good and some that just didn't work out for these photos. Now this one is making a very nice background with just the texture from a roller stamp. Roller stamps beautifully with the jelly plate, and I keep what I roll off and stamp off and stencil off there on the side, and very often those make good prints as well. Now this paint I've used a lot, and I love these paints, except I have a tendency to get gobs of it out more than I could possibly ever need. We're going to add a couple of shades of blue here together. Now I don't know why I didn't test these paints colors against my photos before I started, but I didn't, as you're going to see. And I can already see there as I'm rolling it off on the side that it's pretty bright. It looks kind of beachy.
And that's what we end up with, is a print that's pretty beachy colored. It's not bad, but it's not quite what I'm going for. So, and you'll see it even more on the ghost print here. Very bright colors, might work for something, but I'm not sure about this. All right, so I try a darker print. And I've got a kind of a navy blue color there. I think it's a Dream Coat paint. Really beautiful color. A couple of the round stencils, and then I'm using some of those. Those are just, those rollers are from your glue dots, which you have left over from a roll of glue dots. And that's a really pretty print. It's dark though. It's almost more of a night sky than a daytime. And here again you can see that on the ghost print. So let's see where we are right now with the photos. That dark one is just too dark, unfortunately. Beautiful design, but just too dark. This one is not bad in color, but it's a little bit on the bright side. So I decided to try a little again and do a little bit more here. And I've slowed this down just a little bit. And once again, I didn't test my paint colors. And I'm using a blue paint from Anita's. Gorgeous color, but it's almost a little purpley. And I'm working with this tree stencil. And this is why I slowed it down. I wanted you to see some stencils work great with the jelly plate, and other stencils you don't get what you might expect, or at least I haven't. Maybe I'm just not pressing hard enough. I don't know. I took one of my pretty beige backgrounds and kind of messed it up because the tree didn't come out so hot. It's not bad, but there was so much of it and then so little of the other, and the colors were a little bright. Basically, it just wasn't quite what I wanted. And this ghost print, the tree part of it is pretty, although it's all blue. It's a really pretty sort of design. But I'm left with a few options here for my background. The one on the far right there I did off camera. When you're doing jelly printing, I find there's so much that that doesn't work out necessarily. It's hard to film everything. And there's one I did off camera also that's yellow that was just way too yellow. It's a beautiful piece, and I'll save it for something else. You're going to see one similar though coming up here like the one I did off camera, so you're not going to miss anything. I'm just going to do another one. I decided to take a break here and put my photos on their mat, and then I could get a better idea how they were going to look on the prints that I had. Just gluing these starting at the upper left hand corner on a piece of white cardstock. I've been using the Nina Exact cover print stock from Office Supply Store. All right, now these two, the one that was a little bit summery and then this last one I did, are my best choices, but I still think the one on the left is, the colors are just a little bit bright and summery for me, or more beachy, I guess. So I'd really like to duplicate what's on the right side with just a little bit more of that same color as the sky. And I realized that the best match to that was that Academy acrylic paint. So we're going to get back to it in just a moment. Again, that one's too dark. I kept trying to sort of work with what I had, but I do end up needing to do a little bit more printing if I'm going to go forward with this idea. These photos were taken where we go for walks, and it's nothing, you know, really special. It's just a place that we spend a lot of time in these days, and I thought that it would be good to capture some photos from there. So back to the jelly plate one more time. Won't be very long. And we're going to do some more of that brown background, and I'll be coming back later with the black trees. First step, of course, is the beige background. Throw a little brown paint in there, sort of mix it up. Sometimes I sort of swirl the brayer around to mix. The background I think I've got down. And this time I'm using a roller that I bought at Hobby Lobby back in the paint stencil kind of area, the home crafting sort of area, and that makes a real pretty background. I smudged it a little bit, but you won't know the difference once the other layer goes on. And then we're going to do the blue layer using the Academy acrylic paint. I've had that a long time and I'm about out of it. I may have to replace it. It's really pretty. And I use just a tiny bit of the dark because I know that I can't get too much of that dark. And then I went and added a little bit of that color in there too and blended it more. Surprisingly, this worked. I added so many different shades of blue. It's kind of amazing. But here's what I did with those glue dot holders, kind of like the page that I did off camera. This is very similar. And that's a piece of not sink mat, shelf liner from the dollar store to add some texture, and I get a pretty background. And I've got a lot of blue there, and I'd like to get some of that same shade of blue on my first piece. So I bravely added a little bit of the design to the first print that I had that I really liked, and that made them both match in terms of color. All right, so now I have two pieces. I've trimmed them down a little bit. They're going to need to be trimmed down a little bit more. And in fact, one of them's got to be cut off. I want the seam to be about where the seam is in the photos. And I want to make sure all the white's off. I am going to add some ink around the edges to finish them off as well. And when I glue these down, I'm going to use glue dots, but I'll probably have to add some additional liquid glue to them as well. They do curl a little bit. I find that working with paint on the jelly plate curls less than when you apply paint directly to paper. When you lay the paper down and put the paint on it, you get more curl than I get when I'm using the jelly plate. But it still curls some, especially as many layers as this, and as much paint as this stuff has on it. So I am going to have to add a little extra glue. Before I glue though, we'll do some edging here with walnut stain ink, and I've got some stamps that I know I want to use for my words. I went through my stickers, didn't have anything, but I have some nature quotes from the Merry Nature set from Raisin Boat. The one I ended up using though was from a Stamping Up set, and it talks about spring, and you'll see it in the close-up pictures for this page. You can find a lot of more of the pictures and stuff over on my blog, but it's about waiting for spring. And I think it's very appropriate for these photos about walking outdoors in the winter. Right. Walnut stain distress ink. I've got a little more trimming on one of those pages to do, and I'll go around both sides. And I go ahead and glue them on, and the clothespins are to hold where I put the Tombow adhesive on. I cut out a tree from the silhouette. That was an old design that I had with the Scal software, the Sure Cuts A Lot software, back when I had it for the Cricut. And I don't know where that tree came from. I've had it a really long time. It may have come out of Photoshop, I'm not sure. But anyway, I had a tree silhouette, so I just used the one I had. I'm stamping on this die cut that I did from the silhouette, and that's one that was out of the Silhouette store. Doing it in archival ink because I want to add some more color to this. I want to make it look like a wood grain. And I decided I would stamp the words first, because if I got those crooked, I've messed everything up. So I thought I'd go ahead and do those. And then I'd add my wood grain background. And that's antique linen ink on a Hero Arts wood grain stamp. I've got two different sizes. I thought I'd go ahead and try both sizes while I was doing it. We'll just ink the edges, and we're getting really close to pulling the page together. I did sort of realize somewhere along the way that I had not pulled out a title, and I tried a couple of different colors for my title. I really was looking at beiges, and they just didn't pop, so I ended up using some old basic gray letters, and I had plenty of them to do the word Winterscape. There's 3 brads on the sketch, but I'm just going to do 2, one on each side of this die cut, because that kind of works really well for those.
Okay, I still need to type my journaling up and put on here, but I need to wrap this video up. It's been going on now for days. We had a lot of things going on, so I wanted to show you the finished page and how the jelly print papers came out with these landscape photos. Got our tree, and I ended up using the larger one. Honestly, this morning when I was putting this together, I kind of forgot that I had 2 of these. So I think the small one would have looked good as well. I don't think it made that much difference. And I'll just type out my journaling on white paper and glue that on there. Obviously, it won't be a lot. I don't really have a ton to say. It's more about the photos. But followed the sketch pretty close, except I put the brads in a little bit different place. And that's about all. I debated doing a black border around this, and in the end I decided that it popped out well enough without doing that, and that it might take away from some of the other accents that were in black here. So thank you very much for watching. You can find the sketch and more information over on my blog, as well as links to other classes that I have. Thanks again.